Okay. Yeah. All right. So helping with our heads as well as our hearts. I mean, it's funny because when we think about helping, many of us reserve the emotional part of us to that little corner of helping. You know, it's like we're very rational in our work, our life decisions. But then helping is all about the heart, right? Well, today we're going to talk about why that is wrong and why I think that can actually be harmful. So I'm going to try to challenge many ideas. I would love it if later in the Q&A you actually challenge what I've said. Those are the good questions. So just feel free to be skeptical, to question everything I say, and let's see where that takes us. Hopefully we'll all learn something today. So to start, I'd like to ask how many of you, and this is not really the point of the talk, but I want to see where we are. How many of you would broadly agree with this statement? Should the rich do more to help the poor? Raise your hand if you think the rich should do more. Okay, great. I think that's, I don't know, like 90 something percent, okay? Right, there's only this little tiny issue. Our friends are giving, or we can have this calculator called How Rich Am I? And you can go in there and you can input the data for yourself. We also have it in Spanish at Ayuda Efectiva, Cómo de rico eres. And I've done this for the average income in Spain post-tax, 19,000 euros. Okay, actually it's the median income post-tax in Spain. So if I'm one person living alone, you can actually adjust it if you have children, etc., making 19,000 euros. Okay, where am I in the world? In the ranking, if I ranked everybody in the world, where am I? Well, it's actually top 5%. Okay, so why do I say this? Because, you know, it's very easy to think, yeah, the rich should do more. And suddenly they tell you, hey, wait a moment, you are the rich. Oh, should I do more? That kind of changes everything. And how is this possible? Well, this is possible because at the bottom, there are more than 600 million people who live with less than the equivalent to 39 euros per month. And that's at what they call purchasing power parity. That's what 39 euros can buy. So imagine I tell you, hey, good news. There have been changes in the company. Right now, you're going to be making 39 euros per month. If I told you all of that, that's the situation people live in. And not just a few, more than 600 million people. So I always say that when we think about the rich, what we do is we look up. You know, oh, that guy makes more than me. Oh, look at that house, look at that car. We never look down, because if we look down, we would see this huge pyramid of people who live with way less than we do. So what we're going to be talking about today is not theory. It's about us. It's not about the millionaires who are, at that little tiny corner up there. No, it's really about us. Okay. Somebody could say, hey, I mean, I hear you, Pablo, but this is not my fault. I mean, I did nothing to those people, etc. I mean, why should I do anything? Well, my answer is, yeah, but being up here is not your merit either. So the reason to give is not that we're guilty and we have to kind of clean our guilt or our ancestors' guilt. No, it's that we have won a lottery ticket just by either being born here or being able to live here. It's a lottery ticket. So it seems only fair that we share at least part of the luck. I'm not saying give everything away, but we do not deserve the luck we have. It's a fact. Okay, so I think that's the main reason for giving. We're just so lucky. And I hope that now maybe you will realize how lucky you are, and maybe you didn't really know, but this is hard data. Okay, so regardless of this, how do we usually approach giving? You know, if any of you guys already give to NGOs or volunteer, etc., well, there are a few themes that have something in common, and they all sound great. But you know, there's this phrase in military combat. They say, "No plan survives contact with the enemy." Or there's Mike Tyson, the boxer, says, "Everybody has a plan until they're punched in the face." Well, all these ideas sound great, but when we actually test them against reality, they all have issues, and we're going to go over them. We're going to start with one, which is compelling stories. You know, it's like, who hasn't talked about the amazing story of somebody who sacrificed his life, went somewhere, saved children, has given everything? There are so many stories that sound great, and we just feel moved to somehow join them, okay? So I'm going to tell you an example of one of them, the PlayPump. 1989, Trevor Field, this guy, he didn't make this up. He read about this amazing idea about one of these little carousels that would also pump clean water. Who doesn't want to help children? Who doesn't want to see the smiling faces of children? This sounded so good, so damn good, that Trevor got millions. There were rappers, Jay-Z, talking about this in their concerts. Laura Bush, First Lady of the United States, gave like $16 million for the PlayPumps, and thousands were installed across Africa. It was just this little tiny issue that kind of spoils the story. And it is that day one, this was really, really fun. And all the kids were there, everybody took the pictures, they were published in the papers. Day two, a few less kids came. Why? Because you actually have to push this all the time to pump water. It's not like it rolls by itself. So it's not really that fun. You don't really get dizzy. Day three, one kid. Day four, it was actually the women in the village who had to use this, which was kind of a bit denigrating for them, but also simply less effective than a regular water pump. Okay, so, I mean, how is this possible? How are millions spent on something that doesn't work? Well, there's a missing piece, it's like nobody checked. Why? Because it's about helping children. I mean, don't spoil our passion. We want to help children. So I would advise you to, I wouldn't say be suspicious, but at least don't just trust compelling stories. It's so easy to hear something that's great, amazing. Oh no, this is going to provide clean water. Yeah, okay. Does this actually work? Can this take the punch in the face of reality? What happens when you actually do this in Uganda or in Kenya or wherever? Does this actually work? Or at least let's try small, see if it works, like we would do in a startup. And if it does work, then let's scale it up. But let's not go wild just because the story is so compelling and we're talking about children. Second way we usually give, the most important thing, capitalized, the most important thing to fix. And the typical of this is education. Education is the key. Like, don't give people fish, tell them how to fish. This is one of these things, these mantras that are repeated. So there's this one thing, and education is the future. That is what we have to invest in. And again, this sounds amazing as a theory. Then what kind of things happen in practice? Well, for example, a lot of money has been invested in education in India. And a lot of that money has gone to train teachers. And of course, it's logic. If you train teachers, pupils are going to be better off. They're going to learn more. They're going to have better methodologies. And we're going to improve the futures of the upcoming generations. So it sounds great. Well, what's the issue? Well, there's this little tiny issue. And the issue is that in India, there's a problem with school absenteeism. But it's not the kids that don't go to school. It's actually the teachers that don't go. So you can train thousands of teachers, but if they don't go, your project is not going to work. Okay, so again, there's this little missing piece. Outputs are not the same as outcomes. The output would be the number of teachers you're trained, but the outcome you actually wanted was improved education. And everybody tends to forget to measure the outcome because it's really, really hard to measure the outcome. But if you don't, you can be fooling yourself. You're super busy, you're doing a lot. Just imagine at work. You could be super busy, replying to emails all day long, and then come to the end of the day and realize, hey, I've done nothing today, but you've been super busy. This is the equivalent. You can be super busy helping others while doing things that actually do not help them. So focus on outcomes is essential. Another one, the one current tragedy, again, capitalized. And we've seen quite a few this year. Very recently, floods in Libya, Morocco earthquake. There are silent tragedies that kill hundreds of children every single day. They're not in the news. We never get a single email asking about them. The moment there's one of these tragedies in the news, we get emails of people saying, how can I help? So it's not that people don't want to help, but they're driven by this media attention. We've seen this with Ukraine, for example. Ukraine, this one hit me really hard. Just seeing those images, the cruelty of the whole thing, parents saying goodbye to their children in buses because they have to send them somewhere. I still get goosebumps thinking about it. But again, when you stop and reflect and go beyond that initial emotion, you find out about things like Uganda, where there are 1.5 million refugees from the wars in surrounding countries. In Ukraine, people were crossing the border to Poland, Romania, rich European Union countries that had the resources to accommodate those people, find them dwelling, dress them, feed them. And a few thousand kilometers to the south, there are 1.5 million people in that same situation with zero resources, zero media attention. The same human suffering, but everybody wanted to help Ukraine. Nobody wanted to help Uganda. I'm not saying there's something wrong with wanting to help. What I'm saying is that making media attention what guides your helping may not be the best decision. Supporting the most prominent cause may actually be ineffective. When there are a lot of resources, it's inevitable that some or a lot of them will be wasted. In Spain, many people like to send things. Let's send food, let's send cans, let's send clothes. Well, many times what you send is not what's needed. And you actually take up resources that have to unload a container of some miscellaneous stuff of which only 10% will be useful, instead of unloading what's actually needed, the medical supplies, for example. So, goodwill is just not enough. We really have to look at what is effective. Another example of media attention, this one was crazy. 12 boys in a cave in Thailand, an army of volunteers from across the world rising to help, everybody thinking about this. There's nothing wrong with wanting to save 12 children, but as I mentioned, there are silent killers that are affecting hundreds of children every day, and they only get a fraction, if any, of this attention. Now we get into things that are maybe a little trickier, and this is the one I call what I care deeply about. And there's probably people here who care deeply about something. It could be, I care about girls. Girls are usually in a pretty bad situation in many countries. You may think, I really care about girls, that's what I want to do. I'm going to tell you my personal story here. This is malignant melanoma. It's this nasty type of cancer, skin cancer. It sucks. And it killed my father when he was 58. So when that happened, as happens to everyone that has had some sort of suffering in the family, I thought that I cared deeply about melanoma. I gave money to melanoma research, and so it makes sense. It just makes sense. It seems intuitive. But now I spent the last 4 years thinking about the best ways of helping others. And I realized that I don't care at all about melanoma. What I cared about was my father dying. What I care about is seeing my father suffer and deteriorate. That's what I really care about. In fact, I've come to the conclusion that I only care about two things. One, reducing suffering, and two, avoiding lost potential. What do I mean with that? A child who has potential but is not going to be able to materialize it because he's malnourished. Or just imagine keeping an animal in a cage forever. That's lost potential. It's the waste of all the richness in life. And that's what I care about. Do I care about what disease provokes the suffering, or whether it's a war or a natural tragedy? I don't. So now I aim to reduce suffering as much as possible, regardless of the cost. It's not true that I really cared about melanoma. It was an unexamined belief, really. The final one, and this one's very interesting. Yeah, I want to help, but not just give money. Just giving money, that sounds like I really want to put in my time. Okay, there are a few issues with this, okay? First of all, well, who are we? Okay, maybe we're in Barcelona and we're a design thinking agency, so we're great with post-its and workflows and ideas and creativity. Yeah, or maybe we're an advertising agency. Or maybe we're consultants. We know we can solve problems. And because we solve problems for Caixa here in Barcelona, we think we can solve problems in Sierra Leone. But maybe we don't. Or there's this other scenario where, I'm one of these guys, and now I'm going to build ovens in some rural areas of whatever country. Do I know anything about building ovens? Do they actually need ovens over there? Here's an interesting example. This is Agnes, who lives in Liberia. And Agnes had recently learned how to fish. And she received what we call an unconditional cash transfer, which is just giving her money. And when you do this, what happens is that everybody uses the money for something different. For Agnes, the life-changing thing was buying a freezer. Okay, so how can these guys help Agnes? It may be hard for our ego. It may be a bit disappointing to think that we cannot really do that much with our time. But considering that we're in the top 5% of the world, the fact is that the most impactful thing we have is our money. Whether we like it or not, whether it gives a lot of satisfaction or not, the most impactful thing may be our money. Okay, am I saying you should not volunteer? Not at all. What I'm saying is volunteer for the right reasons. So what are good reasons for volunteering? Well, finding about hardship and other types of lives, connecting with people, helping good projects. I mean, you can do a lot of good by volunteering, but do not think that that is the most impactful you can do. Do not think that donating is, it's something, a few euros, but my impact is here volunteering. Wrong. It's the other way around. Volunteering will make you a way better person. It will connect you to others. It will make you more knowledgeable of the problems in the world. But in 99% of the cases, the impact is behind giving, what you can achieve by giving. The exceptions would be when you're like this, neurosurgeon. Yeah, maybe the highest impact you can have is actually doing neurosurgery in places where they cannot afford it. But for most of us, giving is actually a superpower, but we don't know about it. Okay, so what's the common thread here in all these different things that we tend to think? Compelling stories. I think that the most important thing, I really care about this. Well, I think the common thread is that we have this broken compass with three elements. The first one is bias, our innate biases. I always say we're just sophisticated apes. We're dressing in these fancy colors, but we still have all the biases that come from our evolutionary biology. And we're not ready to think about certain things that are more abstract or far away. We're just not good at it. The second one is emotion. Am I saying that emotion is bad? No. I'm saying that emotion as the guide to action, as your compass, is dangerous. It's great to feel your emotions. It's great to understand your emotions. I mean, there's definitely not something to fight, not something to ignore. But being guided exclusively by emotion can lead you to very bad decisions. I mean, what may sound as the least bad is just wasting money in something that sounded very good but didn't work. But it's actually worse than it sounds, because once you give to this one project, you're not going to give to project 2. So maybe you gave to something useless that sounded very good, and you could have really improved a child's lives here. So, by just not putting time and reason and not only emotion into the decision, I think the sum of that is bad. It's just bad. And the final piece is the me problem, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit. So just to illustrate this, 482,790 children under 5 died from malaria in 2020. Okay, is anybody moved by this? To be honest, I'm not moved by this. I mean, if I think about it, I can say, oh, what a tragedy, but do I feel it? I don't. These are just numbers. Numbers, and the larger the number gets, the less it means to me. I'm just not programmed to be moved by a number. So this is well known by fundraisers. So if I wanted to ask you guys for money for malaria, I shouldn't tell you this. I should tell you about Rose. I should tell her a story. I should tell you to look into her eyes, look at her smile, tell her about her dreams of maybe owning a business one day, and how malaria can actually thwart all those dreams and keep her prostrated in bed. Anemia could actually kill her, and then I ask you for money. Is it worse that could happen to Rose? Or is it worse that it could happen to 482,790 children? This is obviously worse, but there's this well-documented phenomenon called the identifiable victim effect. And it's just we care more about the story of one child than about the story of 2, the story of 10, and way less if it's the story of thousands. So what do? Do we trust our emotion and just give to the person that talks about Rose? Well, maybe we should stop and think twice and just not trust our programming, because we know it is faulty. It's not prepared to deal with this kind of problems. So that's how emotion and bias, the interplay of emotion and bias. The third piece is me. We live in a society where we are taught, or we read, and advertising targets us, and we worry about and we listen to podcasts on how to improve one person's lives. And that's me. It's my beauty, my fitness, my happiness, my productivity, whatever. But it's always me. Always, always, always me. So in a sense, it's only natural that when we approach helping others, we think about me. It's like, What do I care about? What makes me feel better? Sponsoring a child because then I feel the connection, or not actually seeing the result. It's all about me. But if you ask the persons who actually live there, the people who live here, do they really care about what makes you feel good? Maybe they need a freezer, or maybe they need food, or maybe they need medicine, and it doesn't really matter how you feel giving them what they need, because helping is the only part of our life, the only one almost, where it's about others instead of about me. So we should really forget about how we feel and focus on what really helps the people in need, because that's what helping is about. Nobody has taught us how to think about helping, and that's one of the issues. I always say that we've kept this childish approach to helping. I always use this example. Money. When you're in kindergarten, maybe the teacher will come one day and she will give you this cardboard coins and cardboard notes, and you add them up, and you know that, okay, this note is more than this one, and that's great. But as you grow up, you realize that, okay, I actually need a job. How much rent can I actually pay? Do I need a mortgage here? So you develop this mature version of money. But helping, we've stayed at be nice to others. Nobody has told us anything else. But thankfully, today there are better alternatives, and that's what I'm going to be talking in the second part of the talk. There's hope, okay? This is like the grim scenario we start with, and that's, it's really have to be realistic and see where we start. Luckily, there's this movement called effective altruism that has been developing for the last, over a decade now, let's say the last 15 years. And it's about finding the best ways to help others and then taking action, of course. Because, if we just think, wow, cool idea, amazing. I always say that it's way easier to get applause than to get action, Because it's very nice. TED Talks, TED Talks are that. 18 minutes, wow, motivation blew my mind, and then what's on Netflix next? It's like no actual change in your life. We can be junkies of ideas sometimes. So I think that the taking action part is essential. But I want to stop here. The best ways to help others. So the underlying concept is, hey, not all the ways of doing good are the same. I always say I will never criticize someone for doing something good. It may be tiny. It may be just helping somebody get up, whatever. But we have to be honest, and we have to realize that there are actually better ways of helping others. And if we choose the good ones, our impact will be way, way, way higher. Well, Effective Altruism has been working on this. This is the kind of, again, this is the text-based version, which may not be super compelling. So I'm going to give you a very, very stupid example, but I think it drives the point home. Imagine I line you up here in front of these two buttons. If you press the button on the left, you will be saving 1 kitten. If you press the button on the right, you will be saving 100 kittens. And you only have one chance. Okay? You can only hit once. Okay, so I stay here, I look, and I see people pressing. What would we think if somebody came and pressed the red button? It's like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong? You could have saved 100 kittens, and you saved 1. Why? But that's actually what we're doing when we're not comparing alternatives when helping others. Because our resources are limited. So we really have to find out which the 100x options are. Where are they? It's hard. But there are people that have been working hard at this. Intelligent, capable people that are doing their best to identify those best ways of helping others. And what's interesting here is that this is not theory or ideology based. We love theory. Like we're armchair generals, and we may say it's the system. We have to change the system and then go have a beer. Or who knows what. Or we may be convinced that our ideology is the right one, is the solution. But again, that's disconnected from action. So ideology, theory, those are not the tools of effective altruism. Effective altruism has 3 tools. The first one is evidence, data. Do you actually have data? And what's amazing is that today, for the first time ever, not today, in these decades, we actually have hard data on some of the best ways to help others. Something that could not have been known 50 or 60 years ago. We have data. Second, careful reasoning. Sometimes the data is not there. Okay, but at least let's try to be smart about it. Let's not just go with emotion or gut feelings. Let's have a theory of why something might work, Let's test it, and then let's get the data. Let's see if it worked. And finally, a global community. And that's what's interesting about what Mel, Pablo, and others are doing around here. There are people all over the world trying to figure out, okay, how can I contribute here? And there may be researchers, and they're doing this heavy number crunching. And there are entrepreneurs that are creating new NGOs to work on very neglected areas that could help a lot of people. And there are academics that are talking about these ideas and exploring maybe the moral considerations. Hey, is it always better to help two people instead of one? And they're thinking hard about this. And there's discussion. And some people say, this is the best way. And others say, no, I don't think so. I actually think this is a better way. So that's what's interesting about there being a global community working on this. What does effective altruism do in practice? Well, there's actually two parts. The first one is prioritizing problems. And this is really weird because, most of us tend to think that we understand what the world's problems are. Somebody could say, climate change is the one problem, and we should all focus our resources on climate change. Okay? And that's not the same as the most important problems. It is in which problems can we actually make more progress? That's the key question. Not what is the most important, but where can we make more progress? And the second part is funding with money, starting entrepreneurship, staffing, working on the projects that best address those problems. So I'm going to stop a little bit on each of these parts. So problems. Okay, the world is full of problems. Where the hell do I start? The situation we're at is everybody has seen a problem and started working on it. But we're lucky. We're here this afternoon and we can actually decide which problems we should work on. We have time. We can think this over. This little model has been developed that it's quite enlightening, I think. It's much more complicated than we're going to see today, but I think it's going to help us think as people in the effective altruism community tend to think. So if we want to find the problems that we should prioritize, the one we should work on first, we should look at scale, large. And let's go for large things, because if we solve them, we'll be able to help a lot of people. Let's not choose this tiny little thing that only affects a small neighborhood. Let's go for things that affect millions of people. Tractability, let's go for things where it's reasonable to think that we're going to be able to make progress. I always have this example, peace in the Middle East. Is more resources the solution? No. I think we can pour millions, and that is not the problem. So it's not very tractable for people like us or for donors. And finally, neglectedness. And this is, in my opinion, the most interesting, and it has all to do with what we've seen about the one current tragedy. The problems that concentrate all the media attention are the ones where additional resources contribute the less. And the ones that nobody hears about are the ones where your contribution, whether it's time, money, whatever, can actually make a difference. And again, I go back to the melanoma example. The suffering of the people involved is the same whether it's in the news or not. So problems that are large, tractable, and neglected. As I mentioned, there's a lot of discussion in effective altruism. So there's not a canonical answer to, okay, so this is the list of problems. No. But there are some problems where people have found great opportunities to help others. And the first one, global health. We think about the poor, about poverty. Many of us may not know a lot about what living in poverty is like. But one specific dimension is health. And the health of the people who live in extreme poverty, those people that live with 39 euros per month, is threatened constantly by things that we have just completely gotten rid of in rich countries. We have clean water, they have polluted water. There's no malaria. In Spain, there used to be. There's malaria here. A mosquito can bite you and you can die because of that. If you get sick, it can be devastating because maybe you're not going to work. And if you don't work, in the poorest areas of the world, people do not receive a monthly salary. They get whatever they get day by day. So if you don't work today, there's no dinner tonight. So the consequences of any little health problem can really spiral and be devastating. Well, the thing here is that it's not like cancer. When we think about rich countries like Spain, we think about what kills us: diabetes, cancer, Alzheimer, dementia, and these are tough problems. There's a lot of research needed. We don't have the solutions. What's kind of mind-blowing is that in many of these cases, deaths can be averted by protecting people with things that per person costs just a few euros. And we know how to cure or prevent these problems. The cost per person treated is tiny, and still there are thousands of people dying every day, but they're not in the news. I'll tell you about some concrete examples later. So, super neglected, super tractable, very large problem, global health. Factory farming. Some people here may care about this initially, others may not. The fact is, we consume, for example, just in land animals, more than 50,000 million animals per year. So the amount of animals we're consuming is huge. You could say, hey, I don't think it's wrong to eat animals. It's fine. The thing is, how do they live? They live in factory farms. I mean, it's not like the ads. They live in factory farms where they often cannot move their whole life. They suffer. Just terrible living conditions. And this is only going up because as the world becomes richer, which is part of the good news is that the world is becoming richer. We're going to want to consume more meat. And we cannot feed 10,000 million humans, which is where the population is expected to stabilize, without factory farming. And the thing is that the moment the animal is a product instead of a living being, its living conditions are terrible. So I think we have to do something about this. Super neglected. When people think about animals, the money goes to cat and dog shelters. But that's not where suffering is. Suffering is here. Existential risks. Okay. Let's try to rewind and go to pre-COVID times. Imagine I come and tell you, hey, there could be a pandemic coming. We should give some money to prevent that. What are you talking about? I mean, somebody maybe had seen Contagion, the movie, but it seemed completely unreasonable. However, there were some philanthropists, some involved in the effective altruism movement, that thought, okay, a global pandemic could be a huge deal. We're in this hyper-connected world. Who's working on this? I mean, is it in the news every day? Are people scared? Are politicians talking about this? No, there's nothing. Okay, neglectedness. Neglectedness is a sign that maybe there's an opportunity here. So they actually funded things that made managing COVID at least a little easier. The first figures we had about COVID, about how it was spreading, the typical map with these little bubbles, were produced at Johns Hopkins University, and that one of the key funders was one of these philanthropists involved in the effective altruism movement. And he had been investing in this because he thought, hey, this can be a big problem if it happens. The probability may be low, but if it happens, this could actually be what we call an existential risk. That's a risk that could either end with humanity or derail civilization in such a way that we wouldn't be able to recover what we have today. And it has like all the conditions to not be attractive. It's not imminent, it's not here, you cannot see it, but if it happens, it will be devastating. There are others. Nuclear risk was the one that we found about in the last century. So the question is, what could be the others that we're coming up against in the 21st century? And I've already talked about pandemics, but also artificial intelligence. What's going to happen if we build something that's so much more capable than we are, that can learn, and a rhythm that we just cannot fathom? Are we going to be able to control that? Or could that have terrible consequences? And we're only talking in the news about things like algorithms and social media, polarization, but I mean, this can really get incredibly serious. I think that just with information, just by manipulating information, you can really destroy civilization. You can create conflict. There are so many ways this can go wrong. And the thing is, where are the incentives? Incentives to develop artificial intelligence? Way up here. There's so much money to be made. Incentives to work on safety? Really tiny. So people in the effective altruism have been working on these kind of problems, are still working on these kind of problems, and trying to promote that young, talented people work on this type of problems. Super neglected again. Okay, these are three, but there are others. Other people think it's actually happiness we should be working on. Others say, no, it's decision-making. So what's good is that, effective altruism is not about believing anything. It's about being interested in finding the best things we can do and the most effective ways to do them. Okay, let's say we have decided we're going to work on a problem. The next question is, okay, which are the best ways of working on that problem? And the key elements here are data-driven. Let's not go again with gut instincts and emotion. Let's look for data. Top cost effectiveness. Can this be done cheaper? This comes supernatural to people who work on startups. Startups solve problems with the lowest possible cost. And this is essential because if we do things cheaper, we can help others. Some of the best organizations in the world are NGOs in the world are actually experts in logistics. Because if they can deliver medicines for 1 cent less, they can deliver more medicine. So this is super important. Transparency, of course, and the key element, independently validated. So what does independently validated mean? Well, most people have never heard about these organizations, but there are research organizations that are nonprofits that do not keep any of the money, that spend a lot of time working on identifying the best projects. GiveWell in the global health and poverty, animal charity evaluators, helping factory farmed animals. Foundersplits, for example, has put a lot of time into climate change, which is not neglected. However, there are some areas of climate change which could be the most impactful that are actually quite neglected. They're not the ones that are popular, they're not in the news, and they're definitely not planting trees. There are better things that can be done. And these guys work on finding what those are. GiveWell is one of my favorite, and they spend 40,000 hours. Their team spends 40,000 hours every year crunching the numbers to find what is the best we can do for the poorest people in the world. What are the diseases that affect them? How can we act on them? Where can we act with lower costs? What's cheaper? What is the cheapest way of helping more people? What does the evidence say? Who are the best organizations working on that? It's amazing to know that this is out there, so we don't really have to each of us figure out what the best is. No. The work is done. It's there. Nobody's heard about it, but it's done. What does GiveWell's research, I'm going to try to get more specific now, okay, because this has been theoretical. What does GiveWell's research say about how to save the most lives per euro? Well, there are actually 4 things we can do now. Distribute bed nets with insecticide-treated bed nets that will protect people and avoid them get bitten by the mosquito that transmits the malaria parasite. Chemo prevention, in areas where malaria just hits during the humid season, you go and treat every child there. No testing, no nothing, just go and treat every child. Vitamin A supplementation. Vitamins for us are just like, this thing in the ads when winter comes, and they tell you that if you have vitamin C, you will have less cold, and it's kind of sketchy sometimes. Well, when it's actually serious, like here, vitamin A deficiency is the main cause of child blindness. So every year, between 250,000 and 500,000 children go blind. This starts with dryness in the eye. The eye gets so dry that you become blind. And of those that are already at that point, half of them die within the next 12 months. I had never heard about this before I got into effective altruism. But this is dramatic. It's one of those silent tragedies. What's amazing is that, which is very expensive to solve, €1 per child. €1 per child. Not in the news, not dramatic. We don't have an army of volunteers. €1 per child to avoid this, which is dramatic. And finally, vaccination incentives. With COVID, there was a lot of talk, I'm sure you remember, about patents. It's like, these bad pharmaceutical companies, they have the patents and they don't give them, and that's the problem. Well, let's look at regular child immunization. Regular child immunization, the ones all infants get, it's essential. It's really, those are the big killers. The kind of diseases we immunize against are the really bad ones. And in many poor countries, children get their first dose, but they don't get the following. Is this patent? No, actually the vaccines are free. They can get them for free. Okay, maybe they are afraid, maybe anti-vaccine movements. No, because they got the first dose, they just didn't come back. So researchers actually, instead of theorizing, they went to figure out what's going on. And what's going on is that if you're a mother living in extreme poverty, as I mentioned before, you need to work every day, or else there will be no dinner on the table that night. And you have your toddler with you, and some people come and tell you that it's very important that you actually take your child to the vaccination center and spend 1 day without working because it's going to save his life, or it's going to protect him. But you look at your child and he's fine. It's not like he needs some medicine now. And you have to actually decide, do I go there? Maybe it will be closed. My friend went the other day, it was closed, and she wasted a whole day, and they didn't eat that night for nothing. Another one went, and they said, no, sir, we've run out of vaccines. Come back another day. And the cost for you when you live in extreme poverty of that simple thing is huge. It's a big deal. So maybe you procrastinate on that as we procrastinate on silly things. But when you live in extreme poverty, first you have this radical short-term vision. You make decisions for today. And second, procrastination can have very, very, very bad consequences for you. For us, it's just minor. Oh yeah, I didn't finish the assignment or whatever, I'm late with that email. There it can mean that you're not vaccinating your child. Well, how do you solve this? Well, in India, they solve this by giving mothers a bag of lentils. If you bring your child, I'll give you a bag of lentils. I mean, that's how easy it was for it to be worth it for a mother, which tells you just how bad their situation is. And if you complete the whole immunization program, then we'll give you some metal trays. That's it. In the north of Nigeria, where 43% of the children are not completely immunized, this is done with cash incentives. And you get something like 1.8 euros per visit. And that's enough to raise immunization rates so much that you save lives for less than 3,500 euros per life. It's one of the most effective ways to save lives. So this is not what you see in the news. It's not the PlayPump, the super compelling story, education, but this is saving lives. Let's look into malaria a little bit to see how this works. Every 70 seconds, a child under 5 dies because of malaria. This is a little bit more compelling way of presenting that figure that I showed before of 400,000 children. Okay, so, well, we've been speaking every 70 seconds. A child under 5 has died because of malaria. But still, I know that this really doesn't drive the message home. So there's an even harder way of saying this, and I'm doing this just to show you how we react differently to different messages. Imagine a jumbo-sized airplane crashed this morning, full of children. Wow, I mean, this would be in the news all over the world. Nobody would be talking about everything, lunch, at work, everywhere. But then the afternoon comes, and this evening, another one crashes. Oh my God, what's wrong? The world would be mobilized. 2 jumbo airplanes full of children under 5 have crashed. But then tomorrow morning, another one. And in the afternoon, another one. And so on. That's malaria. Those are the figures. So malaria kills the equivalent of 1 jumbo airplane crashing every morning and every afternoon, every day of the year. But it's not dramatic, it's not in the news. So this is a serious, serious problem. Okay, again, do we need research, super expensive? Cancer, 5 euros per bed net. That's the cost of actually buying the bed net, distributing it, teaching people why they should use it, doing a census, and actually coming back to check if the bed nets are still there. Do they have too many holes, or are they still working? Are they hanging, or are they on the floor? 5 euros per bed net. So we can just help so many people with so little money in really, really significant ways. Now, well, first of all, let me stop for a second. Malaria sucks. It's like, for us, if we have malaria, we'll have a fever, we'll feel terrible, we'll probably recover. But when you're a child, malaria can be deadly. You can end up having anemia. If you have malaria several times during your childhood, it will leave you with consequences that will stick with you with bad health for life, which means you will be able to learn less at school, you will be less productive at work, you'll suffer the consequences all your life. And in some cases, you will die. As I mentioned, this jumbo airplane every day. Okay, every 1,000 bed nets protect 1,800 people. Why? Because, hey, we're talking about extreme poverty. It's not like everybody has their nice bed. No, people sleep together. And a bed net protects, on average, 1.8 people. And every 1,000 ones not only avoid all these cases of malaria that are really impeding and terrible to go through, but they also save the life of one person who would have died. Maybe the weakest child, the one that was less lucky, the one that already had a pre-existing condition. What this means is, if you just give 50 euros per month, just one of us, 50 euros per month, every 9 years, you will single-handedly have protected more than 1,000 people. That's a whole school. I can protect a whole school just by giving regularly. And I will have saved a life. Okay, saving a life. Again, these are words. How can I try to express this in a better way? Imagine you are this guy. There's a fire, you've gone in, and you come out with a child in your arms. That would be the highlight of your life. Wow, man, I feel so good. I saved a child today, would be what you tell your children, your grandchildren. You know what? Grandma saved a life once. This is what I'm talking about. Okay, this is a child that would have died if we had not done something. Well, we are actually in that same situation. But what I'm saying is that throughout your life, just by giving 50 euros per month, maybe you can actually save 5 lives, or you can save 10 lives. So we have these ideas about heroism, and this individual moments that again will be in the news, and wow, and somebody climbed and saved a life. Well, it's actually accessible. It's something we can do. If we give to something that's really effective, it would be great. Just imagine everybody in this room saved 10 lives throughout their lifetime. Now imagine in Spain. Imagine everybody in Spain was giving this 50 euros per month, or 100, let's say, and they save 100 lives. Let's say, people who make more than 19,000 euros in Spain, let's say it's 20 million. Okay, if everybody saved 10 lives, we're talking about 200 million lives saved. So, the impact is just huge. Is somebody going to tell me that volunteering is better than that? I think it's going to be hard to justify. It's like, bring me the data. Bring me the data because we know that this works. This is verified and audited consistently. So we can have a huge impact. Now, okay, I hope I've challenged some of the ways you thought. I hope I've presented a better alternative. Some may think, hey, this is really amazing, I want to do something. Others will say, I don't really see it. This is for the people who may want to take action. If you've enjoyed this, if you think there's, I want to know more about this. Well, the first thing you can do is actually do that. Go and learn more about effective altruism. There's a host of resources. And at the end of the talk, after the Q&A, we're going to share a QR code with lots of links. So, you can either make notes or just go for the QR code. You'll have everything there. There are virtual programs. You can meet other people who are interested. There are organizations. You can research them. There are even job opportunities. Maybe you have skills that could be applied to one of the most pressing problems. Pablo is working on things that I think are very useful. He can tell you about it later while I have some drinks. Mel is organizing the Effective Altruism Barcelona group, and sometimes just spreading the word can be super impactful. So that's one. Easy, low commitment. Just go and learn more. Don't let this be that TED Talk. Oh, wow, super cool. What's next? Ayuda Efectiva is the organization that started. If somebody wants to help us, and I say help us fund because I said I was an entrepreneur. What I didn't say is that I actually did well. I sold one of my companies. I've been doubly lucky. Okay, I was born in Spain and then actually sold my company. Okay, so I give. I'm one of the top donors at Ayuda Efectiva. So I'm not asking to do something that will then pay my salary. No. What I'm saying is, if you want to do something, you can give with us to fund the most effective charities. And it's here. We've taken the research of the best evaluators, and you can give online. You can give just once. If you're not convinced, I'm going to give 5 euros. You can give monthly. You can do whatever you want. But it's right there. The most effective projects, the ones you can support today to save the most lives or help people the most. We also have some projects that are super effective to help factory farmed animals, and we even have a climate change project. So it's there. It's not hard at all. So if you're inclined to give with us, great. I'll be super happy. Finally, some of us, and actually the 2 people at Happy Scribe who are sick today, one with COVID and one with the flu, we were so moved and so convinced by these ideas. And Adina here, that we decided to pledge to give at least 10% of our income for life to the most effective charities. Why? Are you crazy or what? Well, imagine you're making, I'm going to make this up, but imagine you're making 50,000 euros, okay? Maybe a lot, maybe depending on the person. The CEO of Santander will not think it's a lot. Does your life change dramatically if you make 45,000 instead of 50,000? I think it does not change dramatically. I think maybe your vacation will be a little less good. It'll take a little bit more to pay that mortgage or whatever. However, you can save a life every year, every single year with that amount. So for us, this was so compelling that we actually signed this pledge. And there are 8,000 of us all over the world. And if you ask people, what they will tell you is one of the best decisions I've made in general. So if somebody was as convinced as I was, this is an option. And they also have the possibility to try the pledge. Hey, try giving. Try giving a small percentage, 1%. See what you think. See if you think it's something worth it or not. Okay. Questions, pushback, skeptical takes. This is when it gets interesting for me. Feel free. I mean, just comment whatever that you find it interesting. Feel free to speak up.